I'm Captain George Gozdz, host of Unfathomed and a full-time fishing guide. I get a lot of questions, but one question I get more often than not is what would be the one bait that I would use regardless of destinations. The answer to that is simple. It's the Berkley Gulp. You know, we all know that natural bait works great. I mean, even cut bait on the bottom will catch tarpon and giant snook, and why? It's because the scent dispersion, the smell. The Berkley Gulp products are water soluble, and what that means is that scent disperses throughout the entire water column as you're retrieving that bait in. Fish are going to track this down because they can smell it, but also when they grab a hold of that bait, they're going to be able to taste it and they're going to hold on to it. They're not going to just grab it and let it go like a piece of plastic. There's two products that I really love in my home waters. It's the jerk shad, either a 5 or 6 inch jerk shad, and also the Gulp shrimp. These two products work great, and it really just depends on the conditions. If I'm doing more scouting, you know, covering a lot of water, I'm going to be throwing the jerk shad. If I get on dock lights where I know the fish are concentrated, I know they're there, and I can fish a little bit slower, I'm going to go to a shrimp. I love the 3-inch shrimp, comes in 4-inch as well, but the 3-inch is my go-to size. I have to tell you, there's one thing that works really well for tarpon, especially small tarpon, is to fish either a shrimp or a paddle tail just on a circle hook, just a plain circle hook, unweighted. And the great thing about the circle hook is when you get the bite, he's going to stay stuck versus a jig. A lot of times they're going to spit it out. This is also a great technique to use when you're fishing for dock lights for snook. Not only am I fishing my home waters with Stuart, I'm also traveling filming Unfathomed, and that takes me to a lot of different destinations. From the Carolinas to the Keys to the Gulf of Mexico. We're fishing for redfish, trout, flounder, who knows, every week it's different. And there's always a Berkley Gulp product that will work for me. You know, we've already talked about works well for snook. 3-inch paddle tail, fish slowly across the bottom, is definitely a killer for redfish. And there's several different ways that you can rig these. Probably one of my go-to favorites is on the jig head, and regardless of water depth is going to determine the size of jig head that I'm using. What I like to do is throw that out there, make a nice long cast, let it sink down to the bottom, and you can see that bait sink, fall. Once it hits the bottom, I like to either drag it across the bottom or give it a little pop, work it slowly across the bottom. And I tell you, for redfish, even for snook, that's a great way to target them. Another question I get often is what rod and reel setup do I use? What line, leader, material? When you're fishing with jig heads or light baits like these Gulp products, you really can't throw them on a big rod. And I tell you, this one setup, if I had one rod and reel to use around the whole state of Florida, whether up into the Northeast or even into the Gulf, it would be this one setup. This is a 7-foot rod. This is a 10 to 17, a 4,000 size reel, 15-pound braid, 30-pound fluorocarbon, and this is a perfect setup to whether you're throwing it on an 1/8 ounce jig head, a 3/8 ounce jig head, whether you're throwing it unweighted, however you want to present your Gulp, this is a great setup to get it done. Berkley Gulp has proven itself to me over the years. They've done the science so we can catch the fish. Make sure you have Gulp in your tackle box.